January of 1960, Beverly Hills. Gregory Peck was at his desk on North Carrollwood Drive when the telephone rang at 11:47 at night. He knew before he picked it up. Frank Sinatra only called this late when something had gone genuinely wrong. Wait, because what happened in the next 4 hours would put both men at the center of the worst political firestorm Hollywood had seen in a decade, force Gregory Peck to choose between loyalty and safety, and reveal something about the bond between these two men that Sinatra had never said aloud to anyone. The story had been burning through the industry for 3 days. Sinatra had announced publicly he was hiring Albert Maltz to write The Execution of Private Slovic. Maltz was one of the Hollywood 10, refused to name names before the House Un-American Activities Committee in '47, gone to prison for contempt, been blacklisted for over a decade. The American Legion had issued a formal protest. Columnists coast to coast were calling Sinatra dangerous and unpatriotic. Worse, the Kennedy campaign, which Sinatra had staked his public capital on, was signaling that Frank needed to reconsider. Have you ever watched someone do the right thing and watched the world punish them for it? Gregory listened without speaking. He knew the texture of Sinatra's private pride, not the swagger, not the mythology, but the version that went quiet when something actually mattered. That was the voice on the line. When Sinatra finally stopped talking, Gregory said 2 words, "I'm coming over." He found Frank at the window of the Coldwater Canyon house, a cigarette burning in the ashtray, a drink untouched. Gregory Peck was 6'3", and he moved through rooms with settled weight, the way a courtroom goes still when a judge enters. He sat down and said nothing, because the quality of your silence tells a man more about your character than the quality of your words. "They're going to win," Sinatra said. "Not a question." Gregory's voice dropped, stripped of everything unnecessary, leaving only what was true. The question isn't what the Legion is saying. The question is what Albert Maltz did wrong. A pause. Can you answer that? What did Maltz do wrong? Sinatra's jaw tightened. He picked up the cigarette. "Put it down. He went to prison," he said finally. "He went to prison for refusing to tell Congress the names of his friends," Gregory said. "He, 10. For exercising the same right every American has by birth. You made a film with him in '45. You were named in red channels the same year I was." Voice level. Not angry. Patient. "When did the principle change, Frank?" This was Gregory Peck's moral authority. Not in a courtroom, not for cameras. 2 men, alone, at midnight. One famous for being fearless, the other asking a question that couldn't be dodged. What would you do if the cost of the next right stand was someone else's future? Sinatra walked back to the window. "They'll kill the campaign." They might," Gregory said. He didn't soften it. "But I know what happens if you pull back. We watched it happen in '47. Men who recanted were never fully themselves again." Unquote. Sinatra turned from the window, face very still, the look of a man who has run out of performance. "You didn't come here to tell me to hold," he said. Gregory met his eyes. "I came because you called me, and because you're my friend, and because I know the difference between a man who is still deciding and a man who has already decided." He spread his hands the way a lawyer does when the case is complete. "You've already decided, Frank. You called me because you wanted someone to say the deciding was right. I'm saying it." In March of that year, under sustained pressure, the Legion, Kennedy allies, studio power Frank Sinatra, withdrew Albert Maltz's name from the project. The film was never made. Gregory never spoke publicly about that night. Asked once about it years later, he said, "Frank was one of the most honest men I ever knew in the ways that mattered. Some fights are won in the deciding, not in the outcome." When Frank Sinatra died in May of '98, Gregory Peck stood at the pulpit and said, "Frank made us feel good about ourselves. What a friend says when he has decided some things belong only to the friendship." This is what Hollywood used to mean, not the awards or the power, but two men in a room at midnight telling each other the truth about what courage costs. If you remember when that mattered, this channel is for you. Share this with someone who remembers when principle wasn't a pose. Subscribe to keep these stories alive. Tell us in the comments, when have you had to choose between safety and the right thing? Every memory counts. Every voice deserves to be heard.